Well, let's take a look at our mammoth grid, and if we focus at the front, the Tejero Cost Jag of Cottingham and Stanley starts on front ahead of the enormous Warden Smith Lister Nobly. The nimble Lotus 15 of Roger Wills, tiny and underpowered compared to the cars around him, but he and Michael Gans will absolutely be looking for glory. The Spears and Hancock Lister Nobly starts on the outside of the front row, and that's the story further back as well. Light, nimble Lotuses versus the big, brawny Listers, the Jags, the Noblies, and of course those rear-engine Coopers, the Monacos, the Bobtails as well. This is a real smorgasbord of 1950s sports racers and some fantastic machinery and some enormously talented driver lineups as well. Modern racers and those who really focus on historics. Lots of owner drivers in the field, and plenty to keep everybody entertained. And as we just heard from Ollie Hancock, the chance perhaps to use the pit stop window to make a difference with your team strategy. And the strategies differ. Some of the cars towards the front of the grid, which have quick pro drivers in, have actually put the pro in first, and the clear intention then will be to get as far towards the front as possible, run as long as possible before the pit stop. Those who have a pro waiting in the pits, you can imagine, will be stopping a little earlier. So there's very different ways to slice this particular race up, but whatever it is going to take some real speed and dedication. The starter gives a signal and we are underway for the Woodcote and Stirling Moss Trophies race. 53 1950s sports cars charging down towards the first corner here. Huge engines and tiny engines alike, big and little, sweeping down into the first corner. Martin Haven and Alistair Douglas watching the action. And Alistair, the first lap or so will give us an indication of who's got away cleanly, but will probably give us very little idea of who's actually going to win this. Already though, you can see a microcosm of this race. The Lister Tejero, the Lister Nobly first and second, but the two white cars behind, the Lotus 15s, smaller engines, oh, and trouble behind as we get a couple of cars making contact and spinning out of the loop. The smaller Lotuses, nimbler, better under braking, probably as good in the corners, even if they're outgunned down the straight. So this is a real battle of Davids and Goliaths.
Yes, unfortunately you mentioned spin there. Peter Ratcliffe, I think he'll pull that car off because there's damage at the front. Peter Ratcliffe, number 170, is an early retirement. We'll get a replay here of what happened. I think it was just one of those moments where there wasn't quite enough space. Oh, in fact, it was not. Was it Peter? Yes, it was Peter who spun. No, it wasn't Peter who spun. He was an innocent party in that completely. The car that originally spun ended up on the inside grass. We didn't spot who that was. But that's very unfortunate. Oh, that was the number 8 car that spun. That was Tony Wood. Yeah,
another Lister Nobly. And again, cold tyres on these cars. They've only had half a lap to warm up coming back from the Heritage pit lane. And yeah, a lot of damage, unfortunately, and no racing in it either. So, Peter Ratcliffe and at least one other car out of the race on the first lap. But here we go. So the car out front, let's just reset our field. So this is James Cottingham and Harvey Stanley. They're sharing the car. Cottingham started, and it's in the colours of a Cost. Now there's another car. That's an Allard J2, possibly a J2X. Hard to tell. A little bit of smoke coming out from under the bonnet. So the marshals attending to that very quickly. There's a couple of J2, or a couple of Allards. There is a J2 and a J2X. I have to say, I can't tell you what the difference is between them. Very individual cars designed and built by Sidney Allard. But back to our race leader then. So this is the John Tejero designed Jag, which has got, as you can see, a very much more sort of modern looking aerodynamic look, a bit more of a C-type, D-type look compared to the Lister Nobly behind, but shares the same 3.8 XK engine behind him, so behind the Warden Smith car. Roger Wills, car number 24, in third place, the first of those bright white Lotus 15s, and right behind him, Michael Gans. So Michael Gans, a quick start up from 6th on the grid, again being light away from the start. His is not necessarily the story that's going to end there either. Michael Gans had has had a couple of disappointments so far this weekend in the Silverstone Classic, but he is right in the wheel tracks of the car of Roger Wills, the Kiwi with the black helmet and the ferns on it. Easy to identify, car number 24. So when these two are close together, they need to work together, really, don't they, Alistair,
yes,
to make sure they don't get dropped by the big engine cars on the straights. And is that a change for the lead? It is. Through goes the Lister Nobly, so a change for the lead immediately.
I was thinking exactly the same thing, Martin. If those two little Lotuses can stay with the bigger cars, the chances are towards the end of the race, or even 3/4 into the race, the bigger cars will start to suffer from brakes wearing out and getting very hot. The little cars will still be very quick indeed. The Roger Wills car, actually, the New Zealander you mentioned, very proudly, that car was raced by Bruce McLaren, who the New Zealander. So Roger Wills, the very, very proud owner of that car. And I think, is Michael Gans still with Roger Wills? It's so close. It looked in that last shot as though there was only one Lotus, but I think in fact there is only one Lotus, yes.
Your eyes did not deceive you, so we have lost
Michael Gans, I
yeah,
think,
we have lost Gans, haven't we? Because those little black tabs on the front there is Michael Gans, not going as fast as he would like, wearing car number 15 on the Lotus 50. Now, really, it should be an XV on the side, but I don't think timekeepers would appreciate that. But Michael Gans going very slowly, and off into the gravel is an Aston 53. That's the DB2 of David Reed and Peter Snowden, and that is well dug in. That may well prompt a safety car, I'm afraid. Big looping spin in backwards. Okay, now then, trying to drive it out, but it just buries itself. And again, narrow tyres means they sink a lot more easily. That Aston is going nowhere in a hurry. That's one of the Feltham-built Aston Martins. And that is right up to the axle in the gravel.
And that car started by its owner, David Reed. As we see, sadly, Michael Gans, number 15, in the Lotus 15, coming into the pit lane.
He'll chug under us. He won't chug around. He was going into the wrong pit lane there, wasn't he? Was he in the Formula 1 pit lane? He hasn't come past us yet.
We've also got a yellow flag down at Copse Corner. That may be the David Reed car, of course. We can't actually see.
No, that's too far round the corner. I think we're going safety car. I don't think it's going to be long before that's not going to get out with human power alone. We're going to need a tractor, aren't we? And so I think we will go safety car. Meanwhile, the race continues, though. So Chris Ward leads in the Lister Nobly. James Cottingham in second place in the Tejero Jag. And in third place, Roger Wills. Now, they have opened up a margin because the John Spears and Ollie Hancock Lister Nobly in fourth place is 3.9 seconds behind them, so just 4 seconds back. However, if there is a safety car, and I do think we're probably heading that way, I'm slightly surprised we haven't gone there immediately, then that will close the field right back up. So that will give Spears and Hancock and everybody else behind them a chance to close in on the leaders. It'll destroy any margin that these guys have, the top three. But what it will do is give all of the fans here at the circuit and watching online a chance to see a lot more close racing. Into the pit lane is car number 20, and that is the Jaguar C-Type of Rudiger Friedrichs. He's had an enterprising weekend as well. A number of these owner drivers racing a lot of cars. Rudiger had a very good race in the BRDC 500 in a big device called the Alvis Firefly Special, hugely dramatic, and a podium finish for him. And now we do go safety car. And that was inevitable, I'm afraid, the moment the car dug itself into the gravel. So it's taken a lap or two to get there, but it was always going to happen. So that will reset the gaps in the field.
And this is an opportunity, Martin, for me to tell the Lister Nobly story, which is always very amusing, isn't it?
Excellent.
You might think that the Lister Nobly was called that after the event. Well, actually, it was called that right from the start. And quite slightly amusing story, makes me laugh anyway. The wife of one of the drivers, herself a racing driver actually, Pat Coundley, went into the workshop when the car was first built and designed, and she said, "Oh, that's knobbly, isn't it?" And it stuck right from day one. It's always been called the Lister Knobbly, and it's knobbly because the design by the Lister company was to wrap the bodywork around the wheels. You can see as we look there at Chris Ward's car how the wheels are wrapped around and then the bonnet is lower, whereas the Tajiro Jaguar behind, designed by John Tajiro, much more flat bodywork, so that's why it was called the Knobbly.
Now, the safety car, as I sort of suspected, because it may be a couple of laps before we get that DB2 out of the gravel, is having a little bit of a wave around. So there was one car trapped, and I'm struggling to identify exactly what that is, actually. However, he's been waved by, so the safety car now has our race leader behind. So those early thank you cameras, 175 or...
That's the Kieft.
Oh, 34. That's a Kieft. Okay, well, there you go. Now, that's, again, we saw one of those in the Formula Junior category, and when you're building cars for other people, you have to build cars that other people want. And so Kieft building junior single-seaters, but also building small sports cars as well.
Good work from the marshals.
Yeah, very good work from the marshals.
You said it wouldn't come out under manpower. Well, it's come out under marshal power, which is completely different to manpower.
Yeah, that's
isn't it?
8 heroes there.
Extra boost.
Right, so as the safety car comes down towards Copse Corner, the DB2 will leave the gravel trap. Now, he's got 2 wheels on terra firma, and that is really going to help, as long as he doesn't try and fire it out of there too quickly. Just slowly catchy monkey. And actually, rather than beetling off in front of the safety car now, unfortunately, he's going to have to join the back of the safety car queue, or is he? No, he should. He should actually be encouraged by the safety car to get on with it and go. Yeah, shake the gravel off as far off the racing line as possible, because gravel, when they go green in Maggots and Beckett's, not really what anybody wants. So there you go, our Aston Martin does head off. Well done, boys and girls. Hey, well, that's worked up a sweat. Second race of the morning, hasn't it? Yeah, could nobody else bother our gravel for a little while, please? Because I think those boys will be a bit bushed.
And we can see out of our window, we may pick this up on the camera in a moment, a car disappeared in a big cloud of smoke on the pit straight, right in front of us here. And
two more cars.
Two more,
so okay, well, the safety car is going to stay out a little longer. Not sure who's in the Austin Healey. That's Nick Topless, the red car, the Cooper Monaco. So
the Austin Healey is Nick Matthews.
Right, okay.
And we've also got a car on the other side of the track as well. So sadly, this is right in front of us.
Well, lots to see from the pit wall. Yes,
we didn't see it.
You can't actually see our timekeeper's tower where we are in that shot, because we're sort of just round the corner, sort of over Luffield, or over the exit of Luffield, just as the track starts to straighten out. So, yeah, didn't see what happened there. Nick Topless was driving that car on his own. Originally, it wasn't going to be a 2-driver entry, but, well, second driver wouldn't have had to go either. So I'm not sure what happened there, but clearly 3 cars involved. And again, well, there is the other car number 31, and that is Paul Griffin's Connaught. 37, right, there you go. So Nigel Webb, John Young, C-type. That makes more sense.
We have a red flag now,
right,
which is not unsurprising, given we've got 3 cars on the track. The Nigel Webb car, that's a really original car. That's very sad to see that damage. That was driven in period by Duncan Hamilton, who won Le Mans.
Is it damaged, or has he just come to a smoky halt?
I think,
he has.
Rear
now, has he spun and hit the barriers, or has he been hit from behind as the car sort of basically stopped because it had blown up?
I'm thinking that there was a misunderstanding behind the safety car. This is just my guess. 3 cars like that, each with minimal damage, hopefully.
Well, the cars are being stopped now on the, again, on the grid. This will be the standard format for a safety car situation, and will then be gridded up in their race order, side by side, in 2x2 formation. Meanwhile, well, is that left front damage on the Austin Healey? Yes, it is, isn't it? Yeah, that headlamp tape is not as square as any mechanic would want it. So what happened with Nick Topless? How's that car been involved then?
Don't know. It's all I saw was a big cloud of smoke and one car off on the left-hand side out of our window, thinking that was perhaps a car blown up and pulled off immediately, but actually I think it was tyre smoke, and I suspect that there was a misunderstanding behind the safety car. Well,
the other thing it might possibly have been is a bit of the quick dry down for oil. Into the pit comes 34, Richard Haythorne-Thwaite in his Kieft. We saw him in trouble earlier on, didn't we? And there's Nigel Webb. Well, Jaguar C-types are rare devices. I had a little chat about racing old cars before we came on air this morning, and lots of people express perplexion that cars that in this case are worth thousands, but some of the cars are literally worth millions, that they are driven in exactly the sort of manner that they would have been driven originally, not in a demonstration, but really, really raced hard. And, but that's what they were built to do, and none of them have the original oil seals and you know, probably not the original pistons and rings and you know, gear teeth and everything else that they had in the 1950s. They've been constantly rebuilt and updated to keep them racing over their original period, but also in the half century and more that's transpired since. So rebuilding the cars to keep them racing, although it is the same chassis that was raced in period, it won't have the same tyres, the same wheels, or a whole lot of the same components. So that, I think, is understood, that these cars are a current work in progress to keep them going.
Indeed, yes, and I think the Nigel Webb car is a perfect example of someone who keeps the cars as original as possible. Nigel is an enthusiastic collector of particularly Jaguars and anything to do with Mike Hawthorne, but the car that he's rather forlornly sitting on the outside of the track is a car that was driven in period, in racing, and he still owns it and still races it.
Well, let's get down to the pit lane and hear a little bit more of what went on, maybe. Let's catch up with Bryn.
Yeah, I'm here with Peter Snowden, who's not sure if he's going to be getting in the car just yet or not. But talk us through what's going on from your point of view there, from what you saw out on track.
Well, it's more exciting than Le Mans, this, isn't it? It's certainly better than the Belgian Grand Prix is going to be, I bet. Yes, David the owner unfortunately had a moment, put it in the gravel at Copse, not quite sure why. We did have a brake issue in qualifying, so whether that's come back, I don't know. But he got it out of the gravel and rejoined ahead of the safety car, so that was about to go in. But I understand now that somebody's crashed behind the safety car, which caused a red flag. So we're right on pit window, so we need to get him in and get out there and see what we can redeem for the day.
There's quite a lot of cars up and down the pit lane here at the moment, out on track really, that have stopped ahead as well. There seems to be a fair bit of confusion going on. From your point of view, you've got to get your head right, haven't you, for when you get in that car, though?
Just got to get in, drive fast, don't crash. It's very simple.
Simple. Motorsport's easy, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Thanks very much, Peter.
My pleasure, thank you.
Well, if you're going to get somebody to give you comment from the pit lane, Bryn Lucas seized upon the perfect person. Peter Snowden, not just the co-driver of that Aston Martin DB2, which inadvertently triggered all this off, but also quite a keen commentator, quite a good commentator as well on historic racing. Now, there was a third car involved, as you can see, and actually that looks like the one that has most damage of all. So we've got the Austin Healey and Nick Topless's Cooper Monaco and other red car. Bryn, if you look over the pit wall, go on, you're going to have a stab at this, are you, Alistair?
It's a Healey. Just not sure which one, but it's a Healey so two Healeys, and there's a Jaguar on the outside, Nigel Webb. I don't know whether he's praying to the car now, but
I don't know, having a little look.
He's
he might actually be on his phone WhatsApping somebody for some spare bits. How many Healeys did we have?
Quite a few.
Okay, so we had a couple of 104s. Paul and Jonathan Mortimer's car is red and cream. Nick English
Harris
is a white one, so it's not that.
76 Nicholas Harris is a red one. That could
red
be
and grey
car.
Nick Matthews. Bryn's in the pit lane, so he needs to look over the pit wall where all the excitement is, and he's on his way. Run! Run, Bryn, run! Run like the wind. God, if we can't get him working, I mean, it's a hot day. It's going to be a very long, hot day, but let's make him sweat first. Well, there are the cars that have made it round behind the safety car. Ooh. In the pit lane, I didn't notice this one coming. This is Simon and Gareth Evans Allard J2X Le Mans. So very different from the shape of the Allard that we saw the J2 before. So, all right, so hang on a minute. We're being told car number 18, which is Nick Topless. That's the Cooper Monaco. That's the car that's furthest from the pit wall. 76 is Nick Harris in the red 104, and 98 is Nick Matthews in the red and grey 104. So
that's
yeah, that's the one that we couldn't identify, that we didn't see because it was hidden by another Healey 104. And if you're wondering why they're called Healey 104s and not Healey 3000s, this was the original Austin Healey. And while we've got a moment, for those who are unaware of what an Austin Healey is or was, Donald Healey, keen racer and rally driver, started designing his own cars but needed proprietary engines, seized on a big 4-cylinder engine that was currently powering things like sedate Austin Westminsters, and with a bit of breathing, changed a camshaft and lots more carburetors in the front of these purpose-built sports cars, the 4-cylinder engine, and giving its name to the Austin Healey 104, or probably originally a Healey 104, until the powers that be at Austin, Lord Nuffield, said, well, if you're going to use our engines, you're damn well going to use our name. And then they went to the 3-litre 6-cylinder engine that Austin was also using in its big limousines, and again that tuned became a very potent engine and brought the Healey back to the forefront again in racing and in rallying as the Healey 3000. So very competitive, very pretty, very able, very capable road cars, sports cars, and very good racers as well. Well, let's hear from Nick Topless. Bryn Lucas is with him now.
Yeah, I'm here with Nick Topless, and over his shoulder we can see his very damaged car. Nick, talk us through what happened.
We were going around at a reasonable pace trying to catch up with the Crocodile for the safety car. Came onto the start-finish at the old pits, and I suspect quite a lot of drivers were looking up at the pit wall and not actually looking at the speed of the Crocodile, and then it was completely obvious that people had slowed right down, whereas those at the back who were still catching up still had too much speed, and I'm afraid one of them, well in fact 2 of them, kind of went into me. I had nowhere to go forward and they just ran in the back.
Your car looks like it's taken a significant... We're getting the signal from the marshal, but I'm just going to finish this chat with you very quickly, Nick. There's some substantial damage done to your car. Can you tell us, you know, from your outset what the damage is?
I can't. Until you take the body off, what I can always tell you is that it's more than you think, and certainly more than you hope for.
Yeah, Nick, thank you very much. I can tell you, though, for certain there's a lot of fluid down on the track at the moment, so it's going to take quite a bit of repair here as the marshals are getting to work valiantly, as they always do.
Well, that's sort of always, I'm afraid, a little bit of a problem when a safety car comes out in a race, particularly with such a big field, is that not everybody is aware quite where the safety car is and how much they're going to need to slow down. And that's exactly why race directors are very, very strict on people who don't slow down for yellow flags. The yellow flag is a warning, but what it doesn't warn you is what the danger is and where it is. So when you see yellow flags, especially vigorously waved yellow flags, whether or not you see a safety car board, you should not be going at racing speed. You should be prepared to stop at any moment. Oh, hello everybody. There you go, in the top of your picture. That is our commentary position. So we are over the pit lane and the cars are being brought back in by the marshals. So a couple in already. But this will take a little bit longer. One of the problems with fluid is that in your road car, like in my road car, your coolant is predominantly water, and the only thing that's added to it is antifreeze, so that, and this is one for elder viewers, it doesn't pop the core plugs in the winter or crack the block or anything else. In racing cars, water boils at 100 degrees centigrade at normal temperature and pressure, and if you use water, then once the engine starts running at over 100 degrees, then you start to boil the water and pressurize the system, and old car radiators and cooling systems aren't really very keen on that, and if you're racing, you're always putting pressure on it. So what they tend to do is they run a cooling fluid that has no water in it and has a much higher boiling point, and as a result is a little kinder on the engine. Unfortunately, what happens with that is when it leaks, it's not water, it doesn't evaporate, it's basically, it isn't actually liquid ice, but it feels like it when your wheels go off it. So it is as much of a lubricant as oil is, and when coolant goes down on a track, it is just as dodgy for the tyres as oil is. So that's why the marshals are paying particular attention to trying to sweep it up and clear it up. So it's not just a stream of water, it is actually very slippery fluid. Well, Bryn Lucas is earning his bacon butty this morning, isn't he? Down in the pit lane. Let's catch up with him again.
Bacon butty and the yoghurt I had as well. Look, Nigel, it was a heck of a bit of damage on the back of your car there. Talk us through what happened.
Well, obviously, I suppose I don't know too much other than I came out of Luffield 2 and got onto the straight and lifting for the slowdown, and unfortunately, I actually don't even know who hit me. I'd have to ask for the footage to, not that that's relevant. I hope the administrators feel differently about who hit me, but yeah, and of course the shame of it is that I'm scheduled to be at Goodwood, but I think we can fix it. I think we can fix it for Goodwood, even if it's not resprayed. You know, it will be patched up safely for the race at Goodwood.
It does. It just looks like it might be mostly superficial. The rim of that rear right was looking pretty mangled, but it does look like there's a couple of panels that need to be replaced on there. But hopefully it's just superficial. It's been torn apart a fair bit.
Yeah, what they'll do is they'll just stitch a panel in there for now, to make it legal and safe. That's not too much of an issue. It looks as though the wheel took the large amount of the impact, which is terrific. Because obviously that's scrap anyway.
But the most important thing is that you're doing okay. I know you've got to go off to medical for a quick checkup, but thanks for chatting to us, Nigel.
Okay, pleasure. Cheers.
Nigel Webb, possibly a little shaken, but a little bit more concerned about the state of that Jaguar C-Type. We don't actually have the incident on camera. We're watching the rescue of the DB2 as it all unfolded behind, but there are a couple of damaged cars, and yeah, unfortunately, when you have hand-formed alloy bodies like on the C-Type, it's not quite as easy as going to your local motor factory and getting a spare panel. It will be a lot of time and effort going into that, and as a result, hopefully he will be able to race again this season. That's certainly what the focus will be.
And while Bryn was talking to Nigel Webb there, you saw walking through the picture Gary Pearson, who runs Pearson's Engineering, one of the experts in Jaguar preparation, and of course a very good racing driver in his own right. We'll see him out a number of times today, but Gary just wandering along to have a look, probably will offer Nigel some advice from his experience of how that car can be fixed. Yeah. As rather unceremoniously, I'm afraid, everybody else got a flatbed, but poor old Nick Topless's car gets hoisted on its roll hoop. They will have asked Nick whether that's okay. He will have accepted that that's a good way to recover the car quickly. As we look at another car that retired before all this happened, Tony Wood, one of the leading cars, handing over to the very quick Will Nuttall, we hoped, in the Lister Nobly, but sadly that was a mechanical retirement the lap before the safety car.
See Tony there on the left of the car in his race suit. He's the one not wearing orange. And obviously helping to run the straps through. They tend to use cargo straps to lift the cars. None of these cars in period had mandatory fixings for lifting with a crane like modern cars will do. So you have to try and make sure. Saw a number of the cars being lifted by the straps on the spinners of their wild weirs. So clear-up operations continue, but I'm sure for an awful lot of the people who are here, there is lots going on beside the racetrack. Nikki Shields has been catching up with some of that.
So we have a world first here at the Classic this year. Now everyone knows that Lewis Hamilton, best Formula One racing driver there is, or is he? I'm sure that's up for a discussion. No, he is. He's smashed all the records, so we thought, fitting in his name, we would hold a record here today. For the very first time in history, all 7 of Lewis Hamilton's championship-winning cars are together under one roof in the same room. Feast your eyes on that. How cool is that? All of them together from 2008 up to 2020. They are lined up, sandwiched together, and what a special moment it is. Guys, I've got to ask you, it's great. It's a real crowd pleaser, this. How much does it mean to you to see all of Hamilton's cars lined up together?
Oh, it's amazing, honestly. Dream come true.
Really? You look like you're loving it. You're both grinning from ear to ear. Lewis Hamilton fans, by any chance?
Mega fan.
Yeah, okay, good. That's what we like to hear. And are you loving it being at the Classic this weekend?
Yeah, it's great, yeah.
What have you done so far?
Just having a browse, really, yeah. Straight here.
Yeah. Is this really why you're here? Yeah. And we're going to see you camped out in this room for the next 3 days?
Probably.
Well, enjoy. Which is do you have a sort of particular car that you love, or one that maybe brings a particular story or championship year?
I love all of them, to be honest, yeah.
I think favourite for me has got to be the 2020 when he managed to win the race here. I think he got a puncher on the final lap. I mean, that's pretty epic. Sign of a true star.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, have a good one, guys. Thank you. Hamilton fans? Of course. A pretty special moment, isn't it, seeing these all together?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Lovely cars.
And are you having a good time at the Classic?
A little bit rough this morning, but yeah.
Oh, okay, I see. Were you here yesterday? Stayed the night? You were here Thursday, so you're on Thursday night, Friday night. Big night tonight? No, over, done, brilliant. Well, enjoy yourselves. Great to see you having a good time. Well, there we go. Everyone is absolutely loving it here. It's a real crowd pleaser. Very special moment. Come down and enjoy all of the 7 championship cars here lined up.
So, clear up operations continue in our second race of the day, the Royal Automobile. It is still early, isn't it? Royal Automobile Club Woodcote Trophy and Stirling Moss trophies. And for those who are already here at Silverstone on this beautiful sunny Sunday, lots to see and do. You will hear undoubtedly across the circuit when the engines fire up again. Cars at the moment on the start-finish line in front of the wing. And don't forget that when the cars are racing, obviously they're on track and you can't get to them, although you can see them. When the cars are not racing, they are all in the paddocks, either at the Heritage pits between Woodcote and Copse, or in the garages and in the pits at the wing. So wherever you are on the circuit, if you fancy going and seeing some of these racing cars at close quarters, please feel free to do so. And talk to the people, ask the guys that are with the cars about the cars. If you want to know about them, they'll give you chapter and verse. They will tell you anything you want to know. There is no such thing as a silly question about somebody's pride and joy. Mister, what is it? What will it do? They will tell you everything you need to know. If you've got a real engineering bent and you want to know details about what's that and how did they do that, they'll be able to tell you that as well. The people that tend for these cars, the people that run these cars, that own and drive these cars, absolutely exude enthusiasm. Well, a classic example of that is a man who started his career racing modern sports cars, but has really made a name for himself racing historic sports cars. Bryn Lucas is with Martin Stretton.
Yeah, I am indeed. His car is parked somewhere out on the track at the moment. We'll come to that in a second. But Martin, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because at the moment, we don't really know when the race is going to restart, but we do know it's going to. And you've got your lid on standby. Do you know what the plan is just yet?
No, I'm leaving that to Dave on the pit wall, but I will have my helmet on when they restart the race because I suspect Gregor will be coming in fairly quickly.
Now, from your side, I'm not sure if you were watching the race or if you were just seeing it from the pit wall there, but it seemed to unfold quite rapidly, didn't it, with people going off left, right and centre?
Yeah, it's been a very unfortunate race. There's been a lot of damage which we don't like to see. Some of it, you could say it was unnecessary. It is very difficult and there's a lot of pressure out there, but I don't like to see incidents like that, and I don't think the cameras could keep up with what was going on even.
Certainly couldn't, but we're doing our best, obviously, as always. Now, when it comes to the race itself, for the restart, you're currently 12th. If it stays like this, that's where you're going to start when we get the resumption of the race happening. Where can you go from there? You know, you've got to get in the car at some point.
Well, the car's a class car rather than an overall winner, and it's the first time we've had it. It was very kind of Gregor to ask me to drive it with him, and we drove it the other day. It's a bit too sideways, lots of fun. The main battle is with Patrick and Fred Wakeman, who are just ahead of us. So, and they're a pretty honed team. So if we can get anywhere close to them, I'll be very happy.
Do you have any idea of when you're likely to get in the car for your stint? How long your stint's going to be?
I think soon and long.
Soon and long.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the plan, but I'll find out. I'll be ready.
Good stuff.
Okay, thanks.
First time Martin Stretton's been described as long. I think his nickname is Mighty Mouse. He is the perfect size for a single-seater racing driver. I haven't seen him in a Formula Junior car, but maybe one of the few things. He's racing the HWM. That's that pale green car, car number 4, right in the middle of your shot. And the Gregor he's referring to is Gregor Fiskin. To call him a used car salesman is possibly the greatest insult. He is a locator, hunter, searcher and purveyor of some mouth-watering machinery. And he's a little bit like a sort of a real classic antique dealer. So many beautiful cars come into his sphere that it must be almost literally painful to have to actually sell them. But you can't own everything, as my wife keeps telling me. Apparently that doesn't necessarily apply with horses, but it definitely does apply with cars. Anyway, Danger Mouse, not Mighty Mouse. No, Mighty Mouse, I think. Danger Mouse is a whole different thing. So, yeah, Martin Stretton, first met him actually, he was racing GT2 Porsches in the FIA GT series over a few years ago. Now then, who's been pushed away? This is another Lister. This is car number 22. This is the Richard Hudson Stuart Morley Lister Nobly. Again, 1958 car with the Jag engine. And there was another car a little further back with the driver violently or enthusiastically waving his arms. You can see there's 2 or 3 marshals there as well. So it looks, with the lights on the safety car, it looks as though they've been told to fire their engines, and there have been a couple of cars that potentially have not been able to fire up. And so here we go. Are we going for a push start? You're very good on nose grills. What's that?
That's Aston Martin, I think, is it? Way back there.
Is that DB2?
3.
3? Oh. Go on.
Just, Marshall's working hard today, aren't they? The Lister Nobly that was pushed off, that's actually a recreation car, and it's got the Chevrolet V8 engine in that one, the Richard Hudson car. So these Lister Noblys either had a Jaguar 6-cylinder straight 6 engine or a Chevrolet V8 engine. So it's real change and change about in the cars. But the leading Lister Nobly, that of Chris Ward, is the Jaguar engine.
Well, still trying to get that car push started. The officials coming down from the pit wall. Well, it was a dramatic start to the race as well, with a 3-car pile-up on the first lap. And early retirement as well for the Wood and Nuttall car. And then the red flags eventually flew after a safety car for this moment. Aston Martin DB2 of David Reed spinning off into the gravel and getting beached. And then as the safety car boards were thrown, a multi-car pile-up. Unfortunately, cars not quite getting down to the requisite speed and running into the back of each other. This is Malcolm Harrison and Patrick Watts' Cooper Bristol. So and one of the early cars, T53, yeah.
Way off with my Aston Martin at distance there.
Patrick Watts, of course, ex-British touring car ace and racing with Malcolm Harrison. Patrick was a historic rally champion as well a few years ago, well, probably quite a few years ago now, it's sort of in my head, but that was very likely to be about a decade ago.
That was in a Sunbeam Tiger,
It was in a Tiger, yeah, yeah. So he was never averse to anything that went sideways and has become more and more acclimatised to lots of things that go sideways. So Patrick Watts, an inveterate good laugh and an absolute lovely bloke and still a very quick peddler. Has a hugely successful business recycling IT equipment as well, but manages still to get out and enjoy his racing. And those of a certain vintage who remember the glories of the super touring era, he was definitely one of the household names that you would see every few weeks on grandstand. The doors being shut on the Alpha, the DB24, I think that is in front. A couple of Astons right in front, little Lotus 11 behind. All sorts of different takes on sports races. Some of them perhaps more grand tourers, like the Astons. But as we are getting ready to go back to green, the clock did stop at the red flag. So it is now running again. We are counting down from 37 minutes. And it is a long stoppage, I'm afraid. But it is a timed race, and you can't just go, right, well, we're hacking 20 minutes out of this, because that then completely skews the difference between the cars and the drivers and so on. Anybody who started their faster driver has lost that advantage, really, haven't they? Because the field have all closed up on the faster drivers. They may stretch out again. However, an apposite time to do what I always do is say, Alistair, tell us about the rules for the pit window.
It's an easy one, this one. Pit stop window is 20 to 40 minutes into the race. So we're back on, as you say, race time now, 37 minutes just about remaining in the race. So with a 50-minute race, as it was originally, if you call that 30 minutes into the race, the pit window will open, so another 6.5 minutes or so, and it will remain open for 20 minutes until 40 minutes into the race, and the cars must come into the pit lane, change drivers obviously if they want to. If it's a solo driver, that's fine, they don't need to get out of the car, but they must remain stationary for 60 seconds. So you'll see when we get the cameras in the pit lane following some of the pit stops, you'll see a mechanic or a helper standing with, these days it's usually a mobile phone. In the old days it was what we called a stopwatch, something we don't hear about these days.
Indeed. Now, a couple of cars have come into the pit lane. The pit window is not open. One of them is the Wakeman Blakeney Edwards car number 11, the Cooper T38 Jag, and that is going to be a blow for them. 41 was the one that I didn't identify. Mark Cole driving on his own in this very pretty liveried Lotus 11. Mark was due to be part of a two-driver lineup, but he's driving on his own, so may well be. Well, they're timing it, but the pit lane, the pit window, as far as we were aware, has not opened. Doesn't say it on the timing screen.
No, I watched the Wakeman pit stop. I'll ask Cameron. I didn't notice a driver change in that car, and it would be Patrick Blakeney Edwards. Right. We'll soon know when we see him on camera.
I'm not sure there's any point in timing this. I don't think anybody is going to allow you to do a driver change, A, outside the pit window, and B, behind a safety car. So that would seem to be an entirely wasted trip through the pit lane. Cars are building slowly back up to speed behind the safety car as they come sweeping around the hangar straight. Lights are off. The safety car will peel into the pit lane as we get ready to go back to green flag racing here at Silverstone. Royal Automobile Club, Woodcote Trophy and Stirling Moss Trophy back underway after the red flag stoppage. We have green flag racing once more, and it is again the Tejero Jag and the Lister Nobly that battle for supremacy. The white car of Roger Wills right behind the little Lotus 15, outgunned in terms of outright power, but a very quick car, and they are now no longer alone. They had about a 12 to 15 second margin over the rest of the field before the safety car came out, but now the rest of the field are right with them, and it's a green Lotus 15 that is giving Roger Wills some real trouble here. And Alistair, suddenly the race has got a different complexion from how it did after the first couple of laps.
Indeed, yes, that's Will Nuttall who's come up in Bernardo Hartog's Lotus 15. Now, Will is the quicker driver of these two, so that's one of the cars perhaps that will have lost out, as will the leading car as well, because Chris Ward generally the quicker driver in that one. The car in second place, the blue Tejero Jaguar, James Cottingham, who's a current GT3 driver in the British GT Championship, is very, very similar pace to Harvey Stanley, his co-driver, and the fourth car in the group, Roger Wills, is driving solo, so that perhaps gives you some idea of the dynamics of what will happen after the pit stops. We think that Frederick Wakeman came in just to have something checked over. We know that he couldn't do his stop, so he had to come in outside of the pit stop window, but it was a very, very quick stop, and he'll be at the back of the field. But that's really given him a problem to try and win the Woodcote Trophy that is now being led by Gregor Fiskin and Martin Stretton, who was interviewed in the pit lane.
Yeah, so it is going to be a short stint now for Gregor Fiskin, a little bit of racing left until we get down to the 30 minutes to go, which will be 20 minutes into the 50-minute race. And another car comes into the pit lane again too early, the Chris and Oliver Phillips Cooper Bristol Sports, but the leaders are still battling hammer and tongs, and already it is turning into a little bit of a 5-car breakaway train. The Spears Hancock car and the Kirkcaldy Watson machine being just dropped a little behind, but Ollie Hancock and Andrew Kirkcaldy are both waiting in the... Andrew Kirkcaldy actually started car number 12, so that is their quick driver. He'll go long then in their Lotus 11, and Sandy Watson will take over a little bit later. There's the 41 car that pitted early, and I'm afraid Mark Cole will have to do a proper driver pit stop, because you cannot, I'm sure, be allowed to do one behind the safety car and before the pit window opened.
Absolutely right, yes. I think that some of the cars that came in, there was a need for them to come in. Others may have mistakenly thought they could come in. Yeah. As we watch Chris Ward come out of the loop, Roger Wills in second place. In third place is now the second of the Lotus 15s, that of Will Nuttall. And in fourth place is James Cottingham in the Tajiro Jaguar. So that runs the Jaguar 3.8 litre engine, very, very similar to the one in the leading car, but different body shape on that, with that rather nice vertical fin behind the driver, rather similar to a Jaguar D-Type, but not the same car.
Very pretty, but a big lock-up has cost him a place. He drops back down to fifth place now. Ooh, and coming back on the inside, trying to squeeze through. And who is driving that? It's Willis in the number 5 car, isn't it? Andy Willis in the Lotus 15. So 3 Lotuses in the top 5. The Lister Nobly leads, and the Tajero Jag in 4th-ish, 5th-ish, depending on what particular corner they're in the middle of.
And Andy Willis, the quicker of the 2 drivers in that car, so that's another one that we may see very competitive in this first part of the race. Roger Wills, I'll put an early marker on Roger Wills, because Roger's won these races. He won here last year, and he is a very quick driver, driving solo, knows the car well. And he's following Chris Ward down the long hanger straight into Stowe Corner. Now, is Roger Wills going to go through on the inside of Chris Ward? He's trying. He's braked much later in the little Lotus, but Chris Ward in the big Lister Nobly with the Jaguar engine sweeps round the outside. Chris Ward, a very, very experienced and fast historic driver, as they come into the historic club, the slightly less acute corner used for historic racing, and the pit window is now open.
Yep. 20 minutes.
Off goes Will Nuttall.
20 minutes have expired. Yeah, Will Nuttall, just don't panic, keep it going, keep it going. And that's the problem again with narrow tyres on these big curbs. If you sort of run over the first bit, then the car tram lines and it gets dragged off the circuit by the tyres. Now, has he got more of an issue than that? Was it the car steering itself because something has broken? He's not up to speed, is he? Has he got a flat left? He has. Flat front left, and that's what dragged the car off. So not so much the curb, but the tyre doing the steering anyway. So it is the Lister Nobly that leads, and Chris Ward in front of Roger Wills for the moment. Roger Wills won't have the speed on the straight. Well, let's see, where does the tyre give up on him? Right in the middle here. Car just drifting out wide all the way through Club Cornish, going, no, 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 come back, come back, come back. And boy, I bet he had wide open eyes as that tyre wall came very close, and he's decided not to try and bring the car back to the pits. Obviously feels that there's something fundamentally very wrong at the front. He may not know that he's got a flat, may think that something is broken. However, Roger Wills, fastest race lap. Again, it may not be the fastest thing on the straight, but the Lotus 15 makes a lot of speed, or holds a lot of speed in the corner that maybe the bigger cars don't. So coming out of the pit lane is one of our early pit stoppers. I think actually that car came into the pit lane a few seconds before the pit window opened. However, I'm sure the stewards will be fully on top of that. First of our actual pit stoppers is now in, car number 152, and that's John Spears, Ollie Hancock, Lister Nobley. We sort of expected that Ollie would be getting in very quickly. No major rush, there are no 3-second tyre changes here, because of course everybody has to remain stationary for a minimum of 60 seconds. That's to allow for the safety belts to be done and everything to be done safely. Roger Wills, fastest race lap in that white Lotus, but the Tejero Jag now closing in behind. So Andrew Kokotti is pitted very early to hand over to Sandy Watson, and Ollie Hancock taking over in the 152 Lister. You see how low the nose is, better for aerodynamics to allow the airflow to reduce the frontal area. Of course, you can't lower the wheels in any way, so the bodywork giving just enough clearance for the tyres. Ollie's ready to go. Off he goes. So back into the fray, and that is a potential podium finishing stroke race winning car, and an early stop may well be what makes the difference for them.
Yes, the one car that isn't changing drivers in this lead group, Roger Wills, can choose his moment, and he'll perhaps be thinking, can I go a little bit quicker, and am I being held up by Chris Ward? And if so, I'll go in the pits and get out of the way and perhaps do some faster laps on his own.
I think you're absolutely right. I'm slightly surprised he hasn't gone in already, because he set the fastest race lap, yet he is still behind the Lister Nobley, so he could be going quicker perhaps, and might well do so in clear air. And bear in mind, of course, that because the safety car, most of the cars that haven't stopped are all in a big clump. They're not liberally spread around the circuit yet, so you may well come out in clear air. The earlier you go in, the more chance you have of a clear track awaiting you. The leaders go by the pits again, 1, 2, 3 of them together, but behind you can see lots of cars diving in and out of the pit lane. So far, almost none of our top 20 have been in the pit lane. Well, there is car number 4. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Gregor Fiskin in the pretty little HWM. Again, a very small manufacturer. Just built sports cars and just built a handful of sports cars. Hemingway Motors and Martin Stretton ready to take over as Gregor Fiskin brings the HWM down into the pit lane. Here comes Roger Wills down the inside, and is that a problem for our race leader? Has Chris Ward got an issue, because suddenly the Lister Nobley was passed for first and for second? The Tejero Jag went by as well. Did he miss a gear there maybe? Has he picked up a little bit of a misfire? Did we miss him outbraking himself? Either way, Roger Wills leads the race. James Cossingham in second place in that flag blue Tejero Jag with the white nose. So there's Martin Stretton being strapped in. It's not just lazy, it's not being a prima donna. Drivers with their hands devices, which everybody wears now, you can see they're around Gregor Fiskin's neck. That's to try and save the necks, particularly in an incident. You just can't look down and do your own belts up, and the belts have to be done super tight, making sure that everything is right. And that's why you have the 60-second minimum pit stop, to make sure that everybody is safely strapped into their cars, because they are not doing a car club demonstration. This is full ball racing. And
very strange, Chris Ward there at the end of the Hangar Straight lost that lead, and in fact second place as well. He seems to be going well again now. Chris is an expert driver, also an expert car preparer, as we've got John Clark in the Cooper T39 with the bobtail, the little flat back to the car. That's unfortunately retired right on the apex of the loop. So that will need to be recovered, and it's a long way out there to get the marshals to him, as Roger Wills comes into the pit lane for his mandatory stop. So the leader, car number 24, the little white Lotus 15, driven in period by his hero Bruce McLaren, into the pit lane. So that puts now into the lead the Tejero Jaguar. Now, that could be a smart move from Roger Wills, because we may get a certainly there's going to be yellow flags at the loop, which will slow people in that section, but depending on whether that car can be moved quickly, sadly we might end up with another safety car here.
Yeah, that is entirely possible. Hopefully it can be done under local yellows. It is a very slow part, or slower part of the circuit, obviously. They're right down to minimum speed there. Just a little check on the tyre pressures, adjusting the tyre pressures. Heard a couple of drivers yesterday. Testing on Thursday was wet. Qualifying was cool. Yesterday was a bright, hot, sunny day like today. Heard a lot of drivers saying, oh, the tyre pressures just really soared and the car was sliding around. You sort of only can go on what you know. So now they're working on the tyre pressures. Roger's clearly saying, right, get a couple of pounds out of the tyres, because you set the pressures on a cold tyre. Now it's done, well, a third of the race. Obviously, although they cool down a bit during the safety car stoppage, when he's up to speed, clearly he's feeling that the car's got a little bit too much pressure in the tyres, and that's sort of making it float around a bit much. Just wants a little bit more on the front end of his Lotus. So Roger Wills coming in from the pit lane. James Cottingham still leading from Chris Ward. Roger Wills, with the fastest lap of the race, will now have to try and do it all again. Still only a yellow flag down at the loop to try and tidy away that Cooper bobtail. Waiting to see Roger Wills emerging from the pit lane. This seems to be taking rather a long time. In fact, he's not coming out of that pit lane exit, of course. He's coming out at Copse Corner.
You knew that, really, didn't you?
I did know that. So we're seeing a shot of the safety car not moving. Here is the Tejero Jag. So there is James Cottingham, the race leader. And again, that very distinctive Ecuria cross colour. Whoa! Bright flag blue. Now, that's very dramatic, even at the lower speeds of Luffield. That looked like a proper handful. And where's the Lister Nobly gone? Did the Lister Nobly cut? No, he can't have come into the pit lane. He wasn't ahead. So what has happened to Chris Ward in the Lister Nobly? Now, he slowed dramatically, lost the lead. Roger Wills and James Cottingham went by him.
Into the pit lane, yes. He's come in for his pit stop.
Right, but he should have been right behind the Tejero and wasn't. Had he gone by the Tejero, did the Tejero have another moment going into the complex that we didn't see? Or has the Nobly got a bit more of a problem? I think this might turn into one of our more chaotic races. That's the J2X Le Mans that we saw earlier on of Simon and Gareth Evans. Has that car had a pit stop? I'm going to have to go too far down the screen to see, but that has gone off at Copse. And Roger Wills, where is Roger Wills?
He's shown
on an out lap,
yeah, he's out.
but the cameras have not found him yet. We will wait and see if he goes by and completes a lap. So there is the Allard regaining the track. That looks like the driver just momentarily running out of talent.
Well, Chris Ward is shown as just being around 1.8 seconds behind as he came into the pit lane. So I think maybe you just couldn't quite see him on the camera shot we had.
Yeah. Well, he was much closer to the leader before. Roger Wills goes by us now, so good news, he is still out there. There's the race leader now, though, James Cottingham. So maybe he and Harvey Stanley will sort of go for a middle for diddle halfway through the race, with 20 minutes remaining of the 50, so 30 minutes elapsed, and the pit window will remain open for another 9 minutes or so. Roger Wills up to speed. This familiar red leather steering wheel of period Lotuses.
And Rob Smith, who's now taken over the what was leading car earlier on, Chris Ward's number 82 Lister Nobly, has just exited the pits. So they've done their pit stop and back out safely onto track.
So our race leader, James Cottingham, continues round. Does he come into the pit lane this time? Yes, taking a tight line out of Luffield. In he comes. Once upon a time, it used to be the thing that drivers would have their arm out of the cockpit to indicate they were coming into the pit lane. And by once upon a time, I mean up until drivers were unable to get their arm out of the cockpit. Well, a classic battle here. Austin Healey 104 with an Aston Martin DB24 right behind. Big and Little, two big British names. Austin Healey no longer making cars. We actually made the point yesterday that in our oldest pre-war race, there were a number of Aston Martins, one of only a couple of makes, Bentley being the other, that were present in racing 100 years ago, who continue to race. Quick pit stop and tyre pressure adjustment as well as James Cottingham hands over to Harvey Stanley in the Tejero Jag.
And James Cottingham could also, as you described, Gregor Fiskin, be described as a second-hand car dealer, but not quite on the corner of the main street. DK Engineering is his company, set up by his father, and Harvey Stanley also works for the company as well, so it's a nice company team running that wonderful Tejero Jaguar, which was driven at Le Mans in 1959 by Ron Flockhart and Jock Lawrence. It didn't finish, unfortunately, but that has genuine Le Mans history, that car.
So is this then a tax-deductible team-building exercise? If they have an official meeting, then they can probably write the entire thing off against tax.
Only you'd think about that.
Only I would, yeah. That's the only way I can afford it. Stephen Jobstle, Andy Willis's Lotus 15.
That's been in, so that's Stephen Jobstle at the wheel. He's the Austrian trucking magnate.
And that is the car that is currently shown as our race leader. So has he been in? No, he hasn't. That's why he's the race leader, because he hasn't been in yet.
My apologies. I thought I saw him go past us.
So the top car that has stopped and has completed an outlap, I think, is Roger Wills, although the timing screen in our booth is still a lap behind. It still shows him as being on an outlap. However, he's been past our pit lane since his stop at least once. So he must be more than on an outlap. And he is certainly back up to speed, isn't he? The car flowing beautifully around the sweeps of this Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. And now in traffic, there's an Allard J2. What a very upright device that is. Car number 32. And that is, that's Cliff Gray in that's not a Fraser Nash Le Mans replica, is it? Look much more like a J2. However, there you go, very upright looking car. And here comes the Tejero. So there is the gap then after the driver change, or pit stops, let's say, between the Tejero, that was the leader after Roger Wills pulled into the pit lane, and Roger Wills, who was the leader beforehand. So that was the 1-2 before, and they are the top cars that have stopped. So Harvey Stanley taking over, car number 6. The bright blue, low line, long. I mean, what a classic sports car look that is. Long, and such a long bonnet out front. Little fin behind the driver. If you're a 1950 schoolboy drawing a sports car, that's the sort of thing you would have drawn. John Tejero, the aerodynamicist, wasn't a 1950 schoolboy, but he was still drawing cars in the same manner. So here's Roger Wills. Again, the little Lotus 15. Development of the 11, which would have raced in period at Le Mans in the small capacity classes, battling for the smaller trophies, and particularly for the index of thermal efficiency, which was a category introduced by the organisers at Le Mans, the ACO, to benefit small-engined French cars, predominantly DBs, Panhards, and so on. But which Colin Chapman with the Climax engine Lotus 11s and then 15s saw as a prime opportunity for headline grabbing class wins at Le Mans. So the leader still yet to stop, but behind Roger Wills, car number 15, car number 24 rather, the Lotus 15 likely to take up the running.
And we're looking now at the leader of the other race within this race, the Woodcote Trophy, for cars not quite as quick as the Stirling Moss Trophy cars, so we don't see them in the overall lead, but the Martin Stretton with that very distinctive green helmet took over from Gregor Fiskin in the number 4 HWM Jaguar, and they are leading the Woodcote Trophy by around, it was 6 seconds last time past the timing line from the Pearsons. John and Gary, brothers, in the 6.5 seconds it was, to be precise, in car number 17, the Jaguar D-Type, which is second in the Woodcote Trophy. So Martin Stretton coming towards us. Martin next to me, Martin Haven mentioned earlier on that HWM a small concern. It was Hersham and Walton Motors was the name of the company, but John Heath and George Abacassis, the two drivers who were building these cars in period, not a name we see anymore.
No, exactly, and they really built a handful, possibly not even into double digits of HWMs, but very successful in particularly in national racing, actually, I think, in the throughout the 60s. Very pretty little car, and you could easily imagine that being a production road car from a manufacturer like Healy or even like Jaguar. Actually, real shades of the C-Type around it, aren't there?
Yes, good point. Yes, it does look rather like a C-Type. It does use the Jaguar engine. So came up with a similar design for this car. The car that's in second place, which we haven't seen on screen yet, the Jaguar D-Type, was of course dominant at Le Mans for a couple of years, and that was very much a Jaguar body shape with a Jaguar engine.
And slipping through is Stephen Yerbstall in the, it's not yet, is it? It's Andy Willis still in the Lotus 15. That is the current race leader, yet to stop, going very long obviously, but have they blown it? No, pit window is still open for another 2 minutes and 14 seconds. So this will be his in-lap. It had better be his in-lap, otherwise they really will have blown it. He's not going to get another one after this before the pit window closes. So that's the race leader. And Roger Wills will then take over. So Lotus 15 leads. Lotus 15 waiting to inherit the lead. But a good long run from the starting driver in this car, Andy Willis, and of course the safety car brought them back into contention. It'll be very interesting to see where they come out in this, actually, and how Stefan Yerbstall can continue. He should certainly be well up in the top 10. They've just put a lap on the number 4 car, Martin Stretton, which is 8th overall, so although they will likely lose most of that, they shouldn't lose an entire lap in the pit lane.
Well, Roger Wills was a minute and 12 seconds behind the leading car that's just gone into the pit lane. So a minute and 12, well, that's a pit stop at 1 minute stationary, but you've got to get in and back out again.
And it'll be about 35 seconds through the pit lane as well. So you're looking at about a 90-second pit stop effectively plus. So Roger Wills will be up the road, but let's see who was 90 seconds behind. Well, actually, effectively, that could put
no, it's dark green, and it
number
has
5
a vertical fin behind the driver
on the podium potentially. So Stefan Yerbstall may well have plenty of work to do. But here is the man who will inherit the lead as he comes past the line next time.
Yes, confusing, isn't it?
If the timing was by the pits where we are and where they are pitting, he would inherit the lead as he came past this pits, but he will be marked up as the leader as he completes the lap and goes by the wing. So it could confuse a simple person, and already, as you can clearly hear, has. So there's the leader. There is the Tejero in second place. So Harvey Stanley in second. And that makes Ollie Hancock third, doesn't it, in their list of Nobly. So Ollie Hancock should be third in car number 152. So that's the car that we saw having a wheel changed right before it went out of the collecting area when Ed was chatting to Ollie. They just found a little anomaly on the tyre, and when you're racing these cars very hard indeed for nearly an hour, what you don't want is any question about whether or not the tyre's going to hold up. Again, look at how busy the driver is behind the wheel. This is not about mechanical grip or aero grip. This is about drifting the car through the corners in the way that had been done since time immemorial. Roger Wills out front looking a little less busy though, less weight to try and manoeuvre around, but still, car needs to be driven in much the same style. Beautiful, smooth, flowing style. And again, because the steering wheel in the Lotus is a little lower, hard to see behind that little screen, but much less busy than the Tejero. Well, there you are. There's the D-type that we were looking for earlier, and he's second in class, Alistair, is he?
Yes, he is, and he's just about 6 seconds behind the leader. So the leader of the Woodcote Trophy is not second in class; it's second in the race, actually.
In the race,
Martin. Yeah, we're race within a race here, and the leading car in the Woodcote Trophy, Martin Stretton. We saw him a few minutes ago on screen. This is the second-placed car. This is the Jaguar D-type, the short-nose D-type with the little bubble behind the driver, but some D-types have the vertical fin as well, which was put on the car for stability down the long Mulsanne straight, as we see a spin for one of our Lister Nobblies.
Yeah, Tarek Mahmoud, the Lebanese driver in his car. Now, most of the cars, 1954, 52, 58, his dates to 2015, according to the entry.
Yes.
So now there were continuation Lister Nobblies made, another line of them made by Brian Lister. So whether that's a continuation car or whether that's when he bought it or when he last had it rebuilt, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, the fin on the D-type, everybody thinks that goes straight back behind you. It doesn't, in fact. The tail fin on the D-type curves from behind the driver more towards the centre line of the car, because the straight fin didn't actually keep the car going straight. Having the air curving the air over the driver actually helped keep the car more stable in a straight line. So if you look at a fin, the tail fin on the D-type, it does actually curve towards the centre line of the car very slightly.
Yes, and
stat of the day.
When I was a young child, my car that I drew on my back of my school books when I wasn't doing schoolwork was the D-type with that fin at the back. It was a wonderful car. It won Le Mans in 1955, 56 and 57. It did have the vertical fin on that particular version of the car, but this one more designed for the other circuits that were used in the Sports Car Championship. As we go back to our leader, Roger Wills, and we've got some close battles now that the pit stops are finally starting to unwind. In fact, John Spears has come out just a fraction of a second behind the now driven by Jobstall.
Yeah. Ollie Hancock, in fact, John Spears handed it over to Ollie Hancock, didn't he? So the fourth place car is right on the tail of the Willis Yerbstall car. So there's your race leader, Roger Wills, with 14 seconds over Harvey Stanley in the Tejero, and Roger lapping a couple of seconds a lap quicker. So that is going to extend itself. But the battle for third, car number 152, Ollie Hancock, the dark blue Lister Nobly, and Stefan Yerbstall right with him. And
in fact, Hancock has got past Yerbstall and Cole as well.
Well, we're showing Mark Cole in there, but Mark Cole can't possibly be there on merit because he made at least one pit stop behind the safety car and I think had to stop again. So Mark Cole being there is possibly a bit of a glitch.
But the car on screen now, the 152 Lister, is being driven by professional driver Ollie Hancock. So this is a car that was, the decision by the team was to put the faster driver in second. So here we've got one of our conundrums in pit stop races with differentials in speed between drivers. So we very much need to keep an eye on the 152 Ollie Hancock. He's a couple of seconds a lap quicker than Harvey Stanley in the Tejero Jaguar. And he was 9 seconds behind with nearly 5 minutes to go. So it's probably too far a distance for Ollie Hancock to do it, but it'll be fun watching.
It will be fun watching. Look at the opposite lock there, hands way over the centre line on the steering wheel. Ollie, young brother of Sam Hancock, both of them started off in junior single-seaters, very experienced historic racers now. And whether you put your pro in first or second, the idea is to get them to do as much of the driving, get the fast driver in for as long as possible, as we heard from Martin Stretton. Oh, again, big handfuls of opposite lock. This car's got a lot more power than grip. There's the Tejero at the front of the picture, a couple of Aston Martin DB24s and a
Lotus 10.
Lotus 10, very good. Just in front. And that's the gap. So Ollie Hancock probably knows what his target is and can see it, and the pit board will be telling him that it's -10, -9, -8, but you're right, 4 minutes is basically 2 laps. It is going to be a tough job to catch him. It's going to be a very tough job to pass him. I think Stefan Yerbstel is currently in 4th again. Car number 41, Mark Cole, I think made far too many pit stops to actually be there. Now it's actually shown that he's only been into the pits once, but we saw him come in behind the safety car and then we saw him come in again, so I'm not quite sure how that has worked out. Car did qualify well, was in 7th place, but he has sort of suddenly emerged after all of the pit stoppery up in the top 4. But I'm pretty certain that the car came into the pit lane while the safety car was out and before the pit window opens now.
Well, at the line last time around, Ollie Hancock had shaved 3.4 seconds off the lead of Harvey Stanley in 2nd place in the race, but just ahead of Ollie. So it actually is potentially a possibility. How many times can I say possible and potential?
Well, it could be a last lap, last corner lunge, couldn't it, if he gets close? And that really rather depends on what the clock says when Roger Wills gets to the line. If Roger Wills gets to the line and there's a second left, then he will continue on another lap and the rest of them will get another lap. If Roger Wills gets to the line on the lap after this and the clock has expired, then they will get no further laps. So right now they're halfway round lap 8, beg your pardon, lap 16 of the race. Are we going to get one more after this? I don't think we're going to get 2 more, are we? Where's Roger Wills now? He's coming up to Stowe, yeah. So there will be less than 2 minutes on the clock, so this will be the last lap because they're doing 2 minute 20 and change. So this will be the last lap about to start for Roger Wills. But
the other 2 are 18 seconds back, so they've got a bit more of the penultimate lap to go.
Yeah.
Bit more time for Ollie Hancock to close the gap.
Roger Wills goes by another Lotus 15, that's Richard Wilson, who will try and tuck in behind him and go, right, how do I get this to go like that? There is the Tejero Jag in 2nd place, and right behind him now is Ollie Hancock. Is that right? Wow, goodness me, look how close he is now. Suddenly has closed dramatically. Ollie Hancock all over the back of Harvey Stanley. This is for 2nd place. It is the last lap of the race. Well, it is for the leader, but these guys... Ollie Hancock looking to go up the inside. He's showing his nose, he's showing his nose. He didn't put it in there in the gap where it wasn't going to fit. But now he does, has a lunge to the inside. It's nice and slow there. He telegraphed the move. Well, there's a tiny little touch there with Harvey Stanley. Harvey was sort of spat off the curbs a little and the 2 cars just came together. I don't think any intention from either party. But Ollie Hancock now up into 2nd place. Here comes Harvey Stanley. He's got speed on the straight. Looking to go round the outside into Brooklands. Can't get through. So there are 2 more big straights to try and sort this out for the Tejero Jag. Harvey Stanley will feel a little miffed there that there was a bit of a bump as Ollie Hancock went through. Roger Wills is away and clear. Hancock just very wide, out almost to Herbert's Trench as they whiz through Luffield. So coming down the Heritage Pit Straight, Ollie Hancock, car number 152. There's a slower car in front, so he will have to go offline. And so too, I'm afraid, does Harvey Stanley, has to go more offline. Very compromised into Copse Corner, and that possibly seals the deal for Ollie Hancock. He's got maybe now 3/4 of a second as they rush into Maggots and Beckett's. He's got slower traffic in front, coming back on 104 Healy that's been off on the grass, and that's going to slow Hancock very dramatically as they come around the final element of the Beckett's S's and through the Chapel Curve. Suddenly the chance for Harvey Stanley maybe to close in. Stanley coming onto the hanger straight with a head of steam. Roger Wills is going to win this one. He will win the Stirling Moss Trophy. The Woodcote Trophy will be up for grabs in a moment or 2, but it's the battle for 2nd place overall as Roger Wills punches the air. The Lotus 15 claims victory, but surely now getting to Copse Corner will be the battle for 2nd place. They're already out of Copse, and it's Ollie Hancock who leads Harvey Stanley right behind him. Does he get more drive off the corner? He's trying to come tighter out, but the checkered flag is there. It's going to be very close. It is Ollie Hancock who takes second and Harvey Stanley who takes third. Dramatic last couple of laps in the battle for those final podium spots.
And hopefully we'll pick up the Woodcote Trophy too, because Gary Pearson has closed up within 0.4 of a second of the leader Martin Stretton, and they've just passed us actually, so they're on their last lap going into Copse Corner. Visually we can see them. Have we? Yes, we've got them on the screen. Well done, the producer. So this is the battle for the second part of this race. They are in totally distinct races, and the green HWM being caught by the blue or dark green Jaguar D-Type, and coming into Beckett's for the last time, and it's Gary Pearson chasing Martin Stretton, two of the greatest preparers of historic cars in the country, and driving these cars.
Two of the best racers as well, aren't they? Look at Martin Stretton straining against the belts, head down, just trying to charge onto the hanger straight, but has he got the speed to hold on? Gary Pearson right behind him. This is going to be very close indeed. The D-Type will have the legs on the HWM down the straight, a little bit more aerodynamic perhaps, but they share the same engine and running gear. They're both Jaguar powered, so essentially two Jaguar C-Type stroke D-Types in different bodywork. The HWM of Martin Stretton just in front, and he's going to keep his nose in front. The start-finish line is so close here to the final corner. Out they come. It is going to be very close indeed. Barely half a car length in it, but Martin Stretton wins the Woodcote Trophy. And right behind him, the Pearson D-Type. That was a great chase down of the leader by Gary Pearson. A really, really good final stint there. Well, there's Roger Wills, our overall race winner and the winner of the Stirling Moss Trophy. And right beside him, kind of 152, John Spears and Ollie Hancock. There is the Kiwi. Oh, he was always going to be a threat. You never can overlook Roger Wills, particularly when he's in this car he loves so much, the Lotus 15. He really, really enjoys racing that car and has been super successful with it. Ollie Hancock, he was left with a big chase, wasn't he? And he managed in the last couple of laps. We didn't quite see where the Tejero of Harvey Stanley sort of lost ground, and he did, because suddenly Ollie was all over him, having a look around. They sort of embraced a little bit. Sorry about that, mate. No, that's okay. It was a racing incident. It wasn't him pushed to pass or shoving his way through. And there, Martin Stretton taking over from Gregor Fiskin as early as they could, and not a second wasted. If they'd been a second slower in the pit lane, Alistair, they wouldn't have been first to the checkered flag, would they? No, that's absolutely right. They often allow a second, perhaps just to make sure they don't get caught by the officials for under time on the pit stop. But there's Ollie Hancock talking to Roger Wills. But lovely to see as those Woodcote Trophy drivers came over the line, both of them clapping each other for their good drive. And that's James Cottingham on the left, Harvey Stanley in the middle, and Roger Wills on the right. Look, it's just old cars. How can you get so excited about it? It's old cars. How can you not get so excited about it? And again, let's just bear in mind, none of these cars is less than 60 years old. There's Ollie Webb after his stint as well, stripped to the waist. Again, top professional modern racing drivers. He'll be racing in the World Endurance Championship in Japan in a couple of weeks, but he's part of a class of cars that are into their 6th decade of racing and being driven, in many cases, at least as fast and possibly even harder than they were in period. The Woodcote Trophy and Stirling Moss Trophy may have been a little chaotic in the middle, but the two-driver race produced some fantastic excitement, and as ever, close racing all the way to the flag. Roger Wills in the Lotus 15 taking the lead. James Cottingham and Harvey Stanley in the Tejero Jag giving chase. A few incidents for some of the cars throughout the course of the 50-minute two-driver race. But predominantly it was all about pace at the front and chasing down the quicker cars after the pit stop. Saw positions change hands on the very final lap. Confirmation of the result. Roger Wills winning overall and taking the Stirling Moss Trophy ahead of John Spears, Ollie Hancock, and James Cottingham and Harvey Stanley finishing in third place. And in the battle for the Woodcote Trophy, car number 4, the HWM of Gregor Fiskin and Martin Stretton, holding on by inches from the Pearsons' fast-catching Jaguar D-Type. Well, a race for cars in their 60s. Some of the drivers approaching that sort of vintage as well. Thoroughly entertaining and, as we expected, producing plenty of close racing and lots of hearts racing for the drivers as well. Well, we had it all. We had a safety car, we had a red flag, we had incidents and mishaps, a couple of mechanical frailties putting cars out of action, but plenty of close racing all the way through.
Right, the historic Formula 2 cars are just about to go out. All the engines have started up. Now, these grid positions are done on the race from yesterday. So we've got Ben Mitchell on pole. He was very, very quick. But actually, the guy, if you could follow me, Gordon, let's see if we can get down the grid a little bit. There's a guy that was in the lead for a long time yesterday, Andrew Smith. I haven't seen him have a David Shaw's car that finished on the podium. He's at the back of the grid because that's actually going to be driven by Greg Caton. So there's going to be quite a few cars that are out of position from really where they should be. They would have posted faster qualifying times. Now right at the back is Tim De Silva. We talked to him, he's in the Formula Junior races and a lot of races this weekend. I think we've got just enough time. I've gone to the back so we get a bit of warning before all the cars leave the line. Tim, well, what happened yesterday?
Unfortunately, the throttle cable broke on the outlap, so I didn't get to start the race, but it's all right. It'll be a fun chasing everyone down from the back.
Right, I can't hear much, but so how far up do you think you can get today?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Can you repeat that? I can't hear you.
Right. How far up can you get today?
I'm hoping to get up to maybe 4th or 5th. The pace of the car is really good. I'm comfortable that I can run with the guys up front. So I just got a matter of getting there. Maybe I'll get some help from yellow flags or something.
Tim, best of luck.
Thank you.
And thank you to the team for switching that off. I think we've got Bryn on the podium.
Yes, indeed. We're here for this podium then from the MRL Royal Automobile Club. Stirling Moss Trophy is the first one we're going to get to. What a race that one was. Let's welcome then in third place on that one. We have James Cottingham and Harvey Stanley. Looking resplendent there. We also have in second place John Spears and Ollie Hancock. Well done, gents. And our race winner, Roger Wills. And to present the trophy, we have Ben Cousins. Correction, Jeremy Vaughan, actually from the Royal Automobile Club, is doing the presentation here. And let's jump in very quickly and get a word with Roger, because Roger, you finished well over 20 seconds ahead there. It seemed from the outside looking in quite an easy one, but it doesn't look like it was from the way you are now.
No, it was really tight at the front with Chris and James at the start of the race, and we pushed each other hard all the way. I think, unfortunately, Chris had a bit of a problem, but it sort of relaxed a bit near the end, but a wonderful race, fantastic.
No, well done all of you. We've got to get cracking for the next race, but well done if you would just put your trophies in the air and the crowd will go wild as we head back over for the next race.